Good morning and welcome to the Brick by Brick podcast with Ronald Pauleus. I am joined with a special guest, excited to be interviewing a friend here. And I have him, this is Paul Rink. He's going to introduce himself here. But I thought on this episode I would get somebody else who's started a business, who is on that path to be an owner and who is doing all the things to build his future for his family brick by brick. And so tune in this episode for a sweet treat and we'll jump right into it. Paul, introduce yourself please to our guests and kind
Yeah,
of.
Ronald, thanks for having me on. My name's Paul Rink, out in Cleveland, Ohio. I've been buying and holding real estate for about 8 years now, and have built a couple small businesses while working a W-2. And this past almost entire year, I've been just running my own businesses. So I think we're going to jump into that a little bit today.
Nice. I didn't know you. That's new to me. I didn't know you built several
Yeah.
businesses. So let's jump into that. What first inspired you to start your own business?
Well, the first thing that inspired me was kind of a story a lot of people run into, and that kind of get into the finding a better way space. I had a job where I was trying to get into a union, and 88 days in, I got let go. I at that point did not know much about finance. My bank account. I didn't have a bank account. I had was living paycheck to paycheck, and when I lost my job, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do next. Um,
Wow.
Ended up going back to work, but in the meantime, I was Googling how to make money, just anything to try to figure out what to do. Went down a whole bunch of different paths, but after about a year of screwing up and wasting more money, it led me to rental real estate.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So it sounds like to me you kind of jumped into this space out of desperation of just providing for your family.
Yeah, it started that way. At that time, I was single, no kids, nothing.
Okay.
And it was just, I had a house payment to make, and when you're living paycheck to paycheck and there's no money in the bank, you don't want to lose your house. So
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
doing little side things until I found a new job, mowing lawns, just anything possible, just make some money, picking up some side gigs. And like I said, I wasted more money chasing down, trading in the stock market, all this random stuff,
Wow.
going to seminars to learn how to flip houses before I really even knew what the heck I was doing.
Yeah.
And after about a year is when I started really digging into rental real estate. And it took me a couple of years to actually buy my first rental. But it all of that built up to realizing, the slow game is a lot better than, this quick catch that everybody floats around when you're talking about how to make money that really isn't there.
Yeah, I like that. The slow game. The slow game. Awesome. So as an entrepreneur, you've likely faced a lot of setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And can you share a moment when things didn't go as planned and you adapted, you pivoted?
Yeah, there's so many moments. But one was actually, I would say this summer, and we're going to go pretty recent. I didn't tell you I ran multiple businesses. I used to have a mobile axe throwing businesses, like throwing hatchets and axes.
Oh,
So I would drive around my trailer to parties and everything,
yeah.
and it was time consuming, and it was profitable, but not. There was a lot more time being put into it than that was coming out. So
Gotcha.
I had to make the hard choice to pivot by selling off that business. I didn't quite get what I wanted, but focusing more just in the lending space and the rental real estate space and getting all in on real estate instead of separating my time and pooling it in different directions. So that was a hard pivot, closing down a business that I saw profit coming in and
Mm,
just focusing strictly on real estate.
Was it worth it?
Right now, still yet to be seen. You know,
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
some things that I'm like, man, I should have just kept that income coming in because it was there. Um,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't have been able to make a lot of the choices I've made or even research enough to feel comfortable going in the direction I am if I was spending 30 to 40 hours a week on that business.
Yeah. Yeah. Understood. Sometimes it's the question of how could you better use your time,
Hmm.
and I totally get that. Awesome, awesome. What was what was one hurdle or setback challenge that almost caused you to quit, but you just decided to keep going?
Ronald, I those quite often. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I will go back. That was my very first two rentals I bought. I bought two houses I shouldn't have. I took a home equity line against my house. Bought two
Ooh.
houses on one lot. Had plenty of equity in my house, luckily, because I owned my first house for about 7 years at the time, and
Mm.
bought it right and bought it at the right time. So there was money to take out of there. But I bought houses that needed a lot of work, and I spent almost all my money on the purchase for the houses that I just bought. So there wasn't a lot of reserves, and I was spending a lot of time fixing things that I probably shouldn't have been fixing because I couldn't afford to pay somebody, and dealing with tenants in a lower class area that I wasn't ready to take on. I'm better suited now to do that, but at the beginning, dealing with all the excuses, I was too soft. I'm still too soft sometimes. And I just like I believed them, and rents didn't come in, that kind of stuff. So I sold those properties for what I paid for them, and I didn't even make all the money back that I
Mm.
invested in repairing them. So
Gotcha. Paul.
so that one was a point where I was like, should I really be doing this? But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's hard. Uh, you start to provide a living space for people renting out one of your properties, and life happens, and you feel sad for them, and then you realize that you still have bills to pay,
yeah.
and doesn't do anyone good if they're not bringing in the check. And so, yeah, I feel that. I feel that. What's been and take the time you need on this question, because I think this one right here is on the top two of our most meaningful questions that our listeners need to hear about from you, Paul. What's been the most defining moment in your journey so far, professionally, personally, that has shaped you today as a business owner?
I would say taking the jump from leaving my W-2 to being
Mm,
a
mm,
full-time business owner. I have spent, and this is where people, I love this because I hear it all the time. People leave their, or people are like, oh, I'd like to be a business owner. I'd like to make my own hours. I'd like to work when I want. I have spent double the hours working on my than when I was working at a W-2 job.
yeah.
Common misconception. And you know what? I'm not even seeing the fruits of my labor yet, Like I'm still
Mm,
building, and I am, full transparency, in a worse financial spot now than when I had a W-2 job.
wow.
A couple bad investments, but
Wow.
you lose when I had almost 70 grand of W-2 income for the year, plus all my benefits. I had a month vacation. I had 401k match. I
Mm,
had
oh,
a
yeah.
lot coming in, HSA distributions every year. So my investing slowed down because I have not recouped that. It's not like I just
Uh,
quit and made 70 grand in my own business.
yeah. Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
I got to bust my butt to do that, cover my benefits, and
Yeah.
all the things that a job was doing for me. When, yes, I was spending a lot of hours before and after work on my businesses that I was running and building my portfolio. Now that money is not coming in from my job where I could buy my next rental. Now I gotta go make that money to buy my
Yeah.
next rental or investment, or private money loan, putting out my private money loan, something like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's that. But I would say about 3 months after quitting my jobs when it really hit that I'm like, man, did I make the right choice? And sometimes I still think that. So
Yeah. It's You're kind of going into our next question there, but I concur that statement, Paul. I have recently quit my W-2. I was a high school teacher at a local public school, and I've been telling Joanna, my wife, this, and my partner Nathan that I work with, that I used to get up at 6 a.m. so I can make it to school at 7:10 a.m. And now I'm getting up at 5 a.m. So I'm getting up earlier than I did for my high school job. And I ended working my high school job at 2 p.m. and I'm coming home now at 5, 6 p.m. So yeah, and I think what you said was key there in the course of your answer is that you're building.
Hmm.
You're building, and it takes time. Cody Sanchez said a statement that is resonated with me, and that it is, "You're not boring, you're building." And
Yeah.
I think so many times people get the idea that, like you said, you can quit your W-2 and all of a sudden you're going on vacation to Puerto Rico and you're sleeping in and you get to work only on Tuesdays, the 4-hour work week. And actually, unless you are inheriting your father's business, you probably ain't doing all of that.
And even if you're inheriting a business, you're probably still now having to work that business. Like it's not like unless you have a great team and operations in
Right.
place,
Yeah.
you got to stay on that or the business falls apart. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Big time.
yeah.
Big time. You mentioned a little bit about mindset, but the next question I have for you is, what were some mindset challenges you had in the beginning that you had to overcome? And what was the most recent mindset challenge you had to overcome?
In the beginning, um, the biggest mindset challenge was thinking in the way of the hours I'm putting in now, I'm not getting paid for. I see the projections
Yeah,
that I'm thinking of why I'm putting these hours into work. I can
yeah,
see paying off in the future because so many people are in that employee mindset, which I was, of I need to work, I need to get paid for the work I'm doing now. And
that's
there's stuff, there's things that I've done 5, 6, 7 years ago that I'm just now benefiting from, and that's actually bailing me out of a couple stupid decisions I've made.
yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, that's good.
at the beginning, that was the biggest mindset shift that most people never can switch. Um, and recently, it's really like regrouping the people I'm around because I think to get to the next mindset shift, I have to, and I've already been doing this past couple of years, but I don't have the same friends as I had a couple of years ago. Do I
Mm.
not like them anymore? No, it's just that when we went out, they were talking about sports and their whole day's ruined. Monday's ruined because the Browns lost on Sunday, and I'm just like, no, this isn't me.
Yeah.
So it's just getting around the people that are talking my language, doing what I'm doing, and
Mm.
that's 100% necessary to get to that mindset shift of believing honestly, because sometimes we all have this. Sometimes you question yourself, am I doing the right thing? Is this really worth it? And if you keep hanging around the people that are telling you why you keep doing that and why you bust your butt and you're not even getting paid for it, um you might start believing that. So making sure you're in the rooms, and that's what I've been shifting. I've been networking a lot, but lately I've been really careful of where I'm going and who I'm spending my time with.
That, thanks for that answer. I think the W-2 mindset is a mindset everyone has to fight and overcome, because I didn't think about it until now, but I remember when I was a school bus driver a couple years ago. I remember when I was a high school teacher and they wanted me to go on field trips, and my question was, am I getting paid for that? I am. Awesome. Here's a couple more hours of my day. And I remember a couple of times at the high school job, they gave us a planning period, Paul. And during that planning period is about 45 minutes, and that's when they expect you to make your plan for what, six? Yeah, all six of the classes you had to teach. Just imagine the difficulty if you're teaching six different subjects, right? And so it was difficult, and there were days where the office would come in and say, "Hey, there's a teacher out for an emergency. Can you cover their fifth period?" And that's what, wait. I think my fourth period. No, yeah, fifth period was my plan. And so it became one of those, okay, do I get paid an extra $20 for covering a period, or do I stay here to plan? And it was this catch 22 because I needed the plan to get ready for the next lessons, but also $20 more would be beneficial.
Yeah.
And now I am getting up at 5 a.m. I'm doing this podcast with you. I have another interview right after you, and I'm getting no returns for this. I'm not getting paid for this. Apple Podcasts has not sent me $1. YouTube has not sent me $1. And I'm knocking doors, working, helping families in pre-foreclosure. And I talk to a lot more families who say, "Get out of my face," than I do who say, "Come on in.
Oh yeah.
I want your help."
Yeah.
And so that you're so right with that W2 mindset and shifting from, okay, the potential return on my time doing this activity is more than the $20 I was making an hour average at my teaching job. And so this is what 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 has been really helpful to you to to overcome that W2 mindset? You kind of mentioned that sometimes you're like, was it worth it
Yeah.
to leave that 70K job plus all the benefits? Like what's keeping you going? How can my listeners potentially overcome that W2 mindset also?
It really, what I said last is getting around the right people, because if you're around people
Mm.
that are telling you that you shouldn't have done it or why are you doing it, you're gonna believe that. I don't know who said it, but we've heard it many times. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if
Boom.
you're spending a bunch of time with people that work at a W-2 job and don't understand what you're trying to build or why you're doing it or why you want to deal with tenants and all the problems, which, to be fair, most of the time it isn't a whole bunch of problems, but that's the picture that people that don't know what they're
Yeah,
doing
exactly.
think. Um,
Yeah.
they're going to just keep being negative about that. So the biggest thing to overcome it is you got to spend the most of your time with people that are doing what you're doing and
Mhm.
believe that's the right path.
Yeah. Valid. Valid. I have another one for you. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking of starting their own business?
Be ready to work a lot more hours than you're doing now if you want to be successful, and be ready to fail, because you will. I'm
Mm,
not saying you can't get back from it, but I'm saying you are going to screw up plenty of times. And if you don't screw up, that means that you haven't really tried that hard, and you probably technically still are failing because you really, if you don't try new things, if you don't take chances in business, and a lot of the times you're going to make moves where you're not sure if they're the right move, and you won't know for a
mm,
while sometimes, or then sometimes you find out right away that that wasn't the right move. But I would say you have to be ready to pivot at all times. I'm not
yeah.
saying just
Mm,
go pivot, but I'm saying you have to be quick. You have to be ready to if you need to. And you have to, you're the business owner now. You have to make your own plan. You have to make your own business plan. There's no going to talk to my supervisor and asking if I did this right or what do you need to do next. Because guess what? You're the person that you have to ask that to.
yeah, that's and that's scary.
Hmm?
That is scary. What could, because I hear I see my listener driving to work right now. They're listening and they're on their way to work, or they just have gotten off of work and they hear that statement you just gave, and they are now overwhelmed with, ah,
Yeah.
I'm no longer able to go to a manager. I'm the one that has to answer the question I don't know the answer to. What what's on the other end of this path that to you is worth it?
Well, I'm still trying to get to that other end. Full transparency, it's not like
Yeah,
living in this huge house like, Paces or anything. Like, I'm living in
Yeah.
a duplex. I still have a roommate, and I renting out the upstairs. So it's not like I'm living this glamorous life. I'm still building. The biggest thing is because I've studied and I've understood this, and I've put a lot of my plans into,
Mm,
action. I am now seeing some of my early investments panning
mm,
out now.
mm,
Could I
mm.
say I'm good here and just stop? Yes, but I'm seeing what I was doing working. So I'm continuing to do that with more knowledge and still building because I see what's working.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I'm not to the point where I want to go get the big house, or I even could get the big house. But even if I could, I would rather be putting more money into other investments because now I see the fruits of my labor from my first 1, 2, 3 years that are
Mm,
now paying off. The investments
yeah.
I'm buying now that are, troubles, that some of them I'm negative on, and it's going to hopefully pan out if I'm right in the future. I saw how that works, and now I just know I got it. I'm going to get that on the back end as long as I keep managing it right and doing what I'm supposed to. So I would say you have to be willing to wait. It's not a short game. It's
Yeah. Yeah. It's that, yeah, slow game, like you said. The slow game. That might be the name of this podcast. Slow game. Paul, thanks for being on here. I see you have a couple books behind you.
oh yeah.
What's one of my readers, listeners should read?
I mean, every one of them back here they should read, but realistically, I still think and Rich Dad Poor Dad's one that if you're thinking about investing, what I like about it is you can read that book, and depending on how your mindset is and who you are, you could take what he says in so many different ways.
Yeah.
You could look at it as I'm going to go buy rentals. You could look at it as I want to be a business owner. You could look at it as I just want to passively invest. There's so many different ways that depending on how you listen to them, you could pull different lessons out of that book.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel
for
like
sure.
everybody says that though. Like that. I mean, almost everybody that's in our space and is doing what we do have read Rich Dad Poor Dad, or at least listened to it.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people don't. This one right here is One Rental at a Time by Michael
Okay.
Zuber.
New to me. Okay.
So look him up on he's on Instagram. He has a pretty good YouTube channel, but I about 60,000 subscribers. But he never edited one of his videos on YouTube. He started YouTube right after he quit his W-2 job. He had a high-paying W-2 job in sales and software, and he built about 180 unit rental portfolio, long-term rentals,
Wow.
while working a W-2 job where he was flying all over the world. Him and his wife did this.
Wow.
And he did it, and he talks about, what he did. He talks about his story, but what I like about his channel is he's now bringing on other like millionaire and professionals in different spaces to give people different options. Like, hey, I didn't do this. He's like, I didn't do this, but people want to know about it, so I'm going to bring in a professional and talk.
Mm,
Because why should I talk about something that I don't know? Which
yeah.
we see a lot too. People have imposter syndrome. Like, I'm doing this, this, and this, and you find out they've never done any of that before.
Yeah.
Well, he's like, if I didn't do it, I'm going to bring on somebody that knows what they're doing.
Nice.
And then I got, Pace's book up there too.
Well done.
So, well, yeah. So that's that one, to be transparent, I didn't read the book. I bought it and I listened to it on audio. So,
Yeah, yeah. Hey, that counts.
but I bought that.
That
I
counts.
was already in a couple of his communities before I even bought that book. I honestly just bought it just to put it up on my shelf.
Nice. Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Paul, how can my listeners get a hold of you if they're wanting to follow your story and potentially do business with you?
Yeah. So the easiest spot to get a hold of me, I spend the most time as far as seeing messages come in is on Instagram, and
Okay.
that's Paul Rink House Hacker. Paul_Rink_house hacker.
Okay.
Uh,
Awesome. I'll make sure to put that in the show
cool.
notes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for jumping on this podcast. To my listeners, you're here because you're wanting to build the future you want brick by brick. And the guests I get on here are guests who are living it. They've not finished making the path. They're actually still building. And the joy is you get to listen in to their stories. And the reality is you can start laying those bricks also. to start building the future you want brick by brick. So my question to you is, what are you doing on this Monday? What are you doing? What are you preparing? What are you planning so you can
Well,
start building the future you want?
any time now, I'm going to be getting a call from a plumber down for my Charlotte property fixing an issue down there. So that's part of today. And after we talk today, I got to run out to a property about 30 minutes from me that hopefully I'll be putting under contract today for the wholesale team. So
Nice, nice, nice.
um, and then it's honestly catching up on all the stuff because I've been in Charlotte for about 5 days dealing with stuff down there. All the stuff that I haven't been able to work on, my emails are backed up and piled up, and I got a lot of things to answer and figure out where exactly I need to focus the second half of my day after reading all my emails.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
that's my day.
Well, Paul, thanks for being on the podcast. Listeners, keep building your future brick by brick. Thank
Thanks for having me on, Ronald.
you. Bye-bye.